Okay, so we're live. I just
I
need
don't know,
to
is
get
the
the,
projector turned on?
Yeah, did you turn it?
no, I haven't turned that on yet.
There you go.
It's only so many things here. Um,
So I had to get on the phone. No, I mean, yeah. Everything else. Everything went smoothly.
Okay, you look that good.
Which I'm very all the time.
Okay, all right. You are good to go, John.
But my help.
We're good.
It's just really neat. There's our user there.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the June 15th, 2023 meeting of the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation. Thank you all for coming here today, and I will, I guess, turn things over to Karen to introduce our
I
guests.
think we can go directly. Shannon, do you want to introducing yourself and talking about the presenting here?
Yes, thank you. My name is Shannon Lindstrom. I'm the school board chair, the Scarborough School Board Chair, sorry. I'm just here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to come. I'm here to spend just a few minutes talking to you about the unified school proposal and the greater K-8 strategic plan that we are working on right now with the school and the town collectively to bring this new school to Scarborough. And we do have an ask. So just a very quick high-level overview if you're unfamiliar. I'm happy to send materials after this meeting that would update you. It would give you all of the details about the project. It would link you to meetings. You can watch recordings, documents, all of the information you could ever dream of reading or watching. But it's essentially just a high-level overview. This is a K-8 strategic plan. So the idea is to get all of the students out of portables and into classrooms, to give all of our teachers classrooms so that we eliminate the teacher, what's called the teacher on the cart model, which essentially are teachers that walk the hallways with carts and their materials, and they move room to room. They don't have a home base. So the idea is to remove all of that from the entire district. So not just at one school, but the entire district. So the way we would accomplish this is building a new K-3 school. And that would be in the Downs. We would take Wentworth, which is currently third grade is housed at Wentworth. So the third grade would move to the new primary school. Wentworth would become 4 through 6. So sixth grade at the middle school would move to Wentworth. That would alleviate the portable use and the pressure at the middle school. Middle school would become 7, 8, and then high school would stay 9 through 12. So that's the full plan. Currently, our entire sixth grade class is housed in portables outside of the main building. So what that means is most of their classes are in the portables, but they do have to walk across the driveway, so outside into the main building to attend any of their specials or any lunch or things like that that occur in the main building. So there is a security concern there as well. So we would be able to accomplish all of our needs with this new K-8 strategic plan. There's been a lot of questions, a lot of discussion around, is this the best option? Is this the fiscally responsible option? And so the materials I can send you afterwards do include an updated business case. And what we found when running the numbers between this K-8 plan that is our solution, quite frankly, and what if we kept the 3 current primary schools and built a 4th? So there was a comparison done. The long and the short of the business case is that it would save right off the top $230 million to build a new consolidated school. So that would include construction costs, staffing a 4th school the first year, utilities, electricity, power, heat, air conditioning, all of the things you would need to operate 4 schools. So this is not only, we're in this unique position where this is not only the best solution for our students, but this is also the fiscally conservative solution for our town. So it's a pretty unique position we find ourselves in right now, where we can do the best for everybody. So that is the high level overview. What we would love for you to do, if you're willing, we have a community forum next week on the 20th. It is at 5:30 to 6:30. It's in Town Hall.
So that's next Wednesday,
Yes.
No,
No, Tuesday,
next Tuesday, I think.
The 20th?
the 20th, yes. And at that forum, the architect firm, the business steering committee, building steering committee, excuse me, and school board members and town district staff will be there to introduce the layout of the school, talk about the floor plan, what this will look like. We have heard concerns in the community about how do you make a big school. We have these lovely neighborhood schools that we love, and we love the small feel, and how do we accomplish that same feeling in a big school? So the layout will be unveiled. Essentially, I can tell you it's a school within a school model. So the idea is to create two separate entrances. So one for the K through 1 grade, one entrance for the 2 through 3, so that they actually enter the building separately. So it creates a more of a small community feel, very similar to what actually happens at Wentworth right now. So very same idea. But that will be unveiled. We'll update the community on the progress where we are so far as we march towards this November referendum. So my ask is, if I send them, I would love to send you the materials. I would love if you could send it out. I would be really appreciative if you could send it to your list.
Absolutely.
Are there any questions for me about the school? Jillian's here as well. She's also on the school board. Yeah, so we're happy to answer any questions.
Is there any plan with the existing schools? That could be a good opportunity for other needs in town, what workforce housing, or even maybe community centers or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's a great question. So ultimately, it's the town council's decision, the town's decision what to do. They actually own the properties.
Yeah.
We do have one of the things, so this solution is for our current population and the population we know is coming for specifically K through 8 population. But in the back of our minds, we're also planning for a pre-K. So that would be a down the road addition to the programming. So that sits in the back of our mind that we would potentially ask for use of one of the buildings. But the rest would certainly be up to the town to decide.
You feel like you're still on time for a November referendum?
We do. We had a great meeting this week. I think that things are moving along. The town council has authorized Tom to enter into a land agreement. So that is moving on. Appraisals are in process. So we do feel like we are on time. We have a July deadline to get information in front of town council. Their decision has to be made for the ballot, if this will go on the ballot by August 16th. So we do feel good. It is a tight, I know that it feels like it's a tight turnaround. The situation we're in though is that we have done an updated enrollment study, and we have a projected influx of students, pretty significant influx of students that is coming. It's essentially the same year that the school building will open, which is 2027. So if this does not pass in November, quite frankly, I am unsure where we will put the kids. We have no space. We are completely out of space.
Shannon, so it's very easy for me to see how there would be the savings to building the new school. We can, I think Portland tried to renovate multiple schools and it was a disaster.
They're still renovating.
They were, and I think they were over budget on the first school before they even got to the other schools. But I'm just wondering if there's you mentioned a concern over the size. Has there been any organized opposition yet? What have you seen in terms of opposition?
Yes, there is,
Yeah.
certainly. I think at first there was a thought that in keeping the current 3 schools and adding a 4th would be the cheaper option for the town. But when you work through the numbers and you can see the savings, that's most people, that's no longer a concern. Really, I've said all along, this, people fall into two camps if they're opposed. One is the cost, and one is this really deep emotional connection to the neighborhood schools. And so at this point, I think the cost really has been put to bed. Just based on really the staggering, and that's like a year one savings, right? So when you talk about staffing and you talk about increases in cost of living and step increases, that's a number that will continue to grow over the years. But the emotional connection is the one it's a little bit tougher, right? When people have this emotional connection to a smaller community school. So we are taking in that feedback, and like I said, really developing a model that will speak to those concerns as well.
How, in looking forward in the planning that you've set, in terms of where we are population wise and projected growth of population, how long do you feel this proposed solution will actually resolve the crisis in Portland, in Scarborough coming? And do you ever anticipate an actual drop in enrollment?
So this enrollment studies look out 10 years. So that's about the maximum you could really, it's almost like looking into a crystal ball, right? And you're trying to look and determine what you believe people will do. So it's a little bit of a study in looking at the crystal ball, right? But it's really looking at your female population in town, in migration, who's moving here, looking at historical data, birth data, and then making these predictions going forward. So we have looked 10 years out. It will definitely, like I said, it'll continue to grow. 2027 is when we are anticipating a really big bump in enrollment. I don't know that it will drop significantly per se. I think Scarborough is a desirable community to live in. I think families want to bring their kids here. So I don't anticipate a drop per se, maybe a level off for a couple of years potentially. But the school does have, we have capacity over and above what we expect in 2027. So there's room to grow. And then there's also room on the parcel of land where we can actually add additions in the future as needed. So I'm talking way in the future. If we were needing additional space, it's not like we would have to start from scratch. We have actually a spot to build 2 additions, which total 24 classrooms. And so that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think of 24 classrooms, one of our primary schools right now is 12. So that's like building 4 more.
500 more kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's talking specifically about the K-3 that you're proposing. I'm looking at the system.
Mhm.
When are we gonna run out at the middle
The
school?
middle
Or
school.
when are we gonna run out the high school again? Or when do
Yeah.
you anticipate the next need after this?
So
And what need would that be?
right, well, this solves our problem at the middle school now. So we have opportunity now to where we can make this change and alleviate the current problem, because we do have a current problem at the middle school.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the middle school, when it was open, really, I would say from day one was almost obsolete.
small.
It was
Yep.
too small.
Yeah.
And so we've had a problem since the doors opened there. So this solves for that. So actually changing this, there's a part of the funds that will be voted on in November, and will go to referendum, or to update the middle school to really outfit it to fit 7th and 8th grade. So this will solve that problem. The high school is an interesting one because the numbers are actually a little bit lower there. So we're actually okay at the high school for now. So I don't, I would imagine as this, we don't foresee a problem with the high school. I guess I'll word it that way.
So I guess we maybe changing my question a little bit. So seeing the bump that you're anticipating in
Mhm.
27,
Yeah,
will that bump be able to flow through the system without additional need?
yes, yes.
Great to meet you guys in
Yeah,
person. I
yeah.
know.
I know.
I've only got you on Zoom. But if you look at the data that was put together, and I looked at it yesterday, it's an exhaustive study of the forecasting of what the enrollments are. I mean, I almost would need someone to help explain it all. I
Yes,
mean, it's
yeah.
really extremely detailed. And I look back and I think the information part of this is, I mean, you've got the global facilities manager for one of the largest employers in the Portland area, in all of Maine, leading the committee that has done, leading the building committee. And I mean Dana Fortier,
Yes,
who
yeah.
came and spoke here last year. And the people that have been involved in this on the committee, the building committee side, plus the school board and the school department. There's an amazing amount of detail if you look for it.
Absolutely.
And you gotta look by, in my opinion, you have to look by that final dollar figure.
Yes.
Because if you just go, oh, that's what it is. You need to jump into what you just explained, that four neighborhood schools is not cost effective and so I, in what limited, I have no kids in the school district anymore. And my kids were in the school district. My daughter's graduating class was well over 300 at Scarborough High School, and the class of 2012 was even bigger.
Right.
That was the last big bump, and the school could handle it. I was involved in the expansion of the school in 2005. It's that middle school that's the problem, and hearing you describe it that way, the sixth graders are outliers, not only physically, but they can't participate in any of the sports or anything like that at the middle school level. So I think it's a really well thought out plan. And just in final reference, we were living in South Portland and got to take advantage of the preschool program that South Portland has been offering for about 20 years, 25 years, where my oldest daughter went to pre-K at a school that was now, shut down as an elementary school. It was just specifically pre-K. It's right by where the Jewish Center is, right off of Broadway or Main Street. And that was a great program. So to hear that I didn't realize that was in the planning as well. To consider having a pre-K program as part of Scarborough's system. So I wish you the best of luck, and I'm double booked on Tuesday, but I'll see what I can do.
Well, thank you. And thank you for mentioning the expertise, Dana's expertise, and really the full committee. There is first off, they're all volunteers, and they have given a significant amount of time, as you probably can appreciate. And but we have really good experts in the room. We have financial experts, we have engineering experts, we have architectural experts. So we have really good minds sitting at the table working on this, right? And so I appreciate you recognizing that. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Shannon, I have one question that's not necessarily about the school expansion, but the board is working on a set of indicators and really about happiness. What's good to, why do people want to be here? And of course, one of the things they listed was, a great school system. And so if we're gonna measure that, or if we're gonna look for an indicator, what do you think are the best statistical indicators? Or do you guys use certain standard measurements that are around? What's your way of having a simple way of looking at, I hate to say simple, but you know what I mean?
Yes,
An easy to understand way of looking at the schools.
Have you looked at niche.com? That's a good indicator. In fact, there's a report that I just sent over to our superintendent yesterday that talked about the high schools, the best high schools in Maine. I can send it to you as an article that was done in Maine, and Scarborough was fifth on the list, fifth out of 200, and I want to say 230, but don't quote me on that number. So pretty really good ratings, but the niche ratings are what we look at a lot.
Okay.
So that would be a good indicator.
Excellent. But that always comes up,
Yeah.
whenever we're talking about why people want to be here and what makes this a great community is the good schools. So
Absolutely. I would say staff too, our staff, as we have, we're really fortunate in the staff that we have, and the as positions open and we look at who's applying and who we're hiring, we really are recruiting and retaining pretty incredible staff. So high levels of not only experience, but education. So we've been really fortunate there as well.
Okay.
Now we just need the facilities to help them.
So I did have a quick question.
Yeah.
Are there, as you were doing research on this, did you look at other communities that have done this and have had good success with this? Because I think that's also part of the story, is to say that it's not that we're leading, you know, in this,
Yes.
but that this has been done, and sharing the success of other schools that have done it. I don't know if that.
Yeah, that is something the building steering committee has looked at, absolutely, as we've discussed the solution and how to move forward. We are, as you said, as you indicated, we're absolutely not the cutting edge of this, that, you know, unified schools or consolidated schools, there's different words that have been used, but this is definitely the direction a lot of districts and a lot, not only in Maine, but really across the United States are going towards. So, yeah.
And from a projection standpoint, the Downs, is a lot of the population for K-3 anticipated to be from the Downs area?
So it's actually anticipated to be all over Scarborough. What the building steering committee did was they looked at a geographical map of Scarborough, and found the center.
Mhm.
The centroid is what we've been calling it in our meetings of town. And then we kind of came up with a set of parameters. One of them was to be within 3 miles of that centroid, because the bus,
Yeah.
the idea behind it is that the bus trip for each part of
Mhm.
Scarborough would roughly be the same.
Yeah.
Right, so we're not putting someone on a bus for an hour and a half and someone else for 45 minutes. Everybody roughly gets the same bus side ride. So that is the Downs. So, and it's nice, because as you know, as the crow flies, it actually backs up to our municipal campus anyway. So it's really kind of,
Sure.
in the same
The
neighborhood.
question was more student population, right? Was that your question?
Yeah, I was just curious if that's part of the draw, is that ideally that is a neighborhood. You know, I know it's hard for people to think outside of their own neighborhood, but
Right,
that
yeah.
has become a new neighborhood that could be
Yeah.
the feed to that.
Absolutely. And those, you know, I think the idea behind my interpretation, the idea behind the towns is it's like a live, work, play
Mhm.
area, right? Where you can walk and you don't necessarily have to drive. And so this would allow for those students that live there to walk to school, right? Have that. So they would get the benefit of the neighborhood
Mhm.
school, right? That would be theirs.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. We've got we're in our 5th year, so we've got some real data. We know,
Right.
we know how many kids are coming
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And it's, doesn't even move the needle, frankly, right
Right.
now. I think there is a phenomenon to be aware of, though. When you build a school, I think it may be a draw in and of itself, and the
Yeah.
demographics of folks interested there may change because of the low.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a good point.
Just to, Shannon mentioned it, but in my mind, there's really there's a hurdle that needs to get over. And that is getting through the town council. I mean, the town council is the gatekeeper and decides whether, if and when something goes on the ballot. And that decision will happen late July and ultimately, I think on the August 16th meeting. So I really encourage you to keep that as your focus, those 7 members, or at least 4 of them.
Yeah.
All the while, you need to be educating the public,
Right.
because presuming that you're successful, then you'll have to kind of shift your focus to, selling it to the
Yeah.
voters, obviously. But the council's been.
Council decides if it goes to referendum?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they
Yeah, you might
approved the
recall this time
plan.
last year, there was a protracted discussion with the library, and I think that's not the only reason, but I think that
Yeah.
didn't help the library's chances, which the council
Right.
really struggled over and scrutinized whether it was ready or not, whether it should go, and I
Yeah.
think we can predict that that's gonna be.
The same.
Stay here.
And one of the argument points was, we've got a big school coming.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really what we were up against with the library.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, and you look at all of them, because then behind that is the community center, right? So really prioritizing, I think that's what it felt like it came down to for me, for voters, prioritizing what our needs are versus what would be nice to have, right? What would be a nice addition to our community. And so yes, to that point, I do think, I did hear that a lot during the library discussions, but we are in a similar place where, to Tom's point, we have this immediate hurdle of making sure that at least 4, I would love to have all 7 counselors saying, yes, this is the solution, because I do think, to Tom's point, that was a detriment to the library, right? When you have a divided council. So I would love for all of the counselors to own the solution with the 7 of us board members, that this is a 14 of us understanding this is the need. And this is our solution moving forward. Will we get there? That's a bigger question.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is that this isn't the school board's problem, it's our problem.
Right, yeah.
We all own responsibility in finding a solution to it. And,
Absolutely.
it's easy to push it off and make it someone else's problem. But the reality is, it's here.
Yeah.
It is an absolute need and needs to be addressed and doesn't go away, only gets more expensive.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that it's important for people to understand, it's meeting an existing need. So I think sometimes there's this tendency to say, oh, we're blaming everything on growth, but no, this
There's
is
a need
fulfilling
now.
an existing, if I understand the numbers and the projections and the really wonderful report that was done. We have existing needs.
Yeah, you're right. We're over capacity as it stands right now with the kids right now. If we add nobody, if nobody else moves here, nobody else has any babies, like we are already over capacity. And at this point, you walk around the school, we've been doing a lot of school tours, and I feel like that's been really eye-opening for our families, but simple things, the cafeterias at the schools aren't even large enough to cook food for students. So what does that mean? That means food is cooked at Wentworth and bused to all of the primary schools. I mean, it's all of the things that if you listen to Kate, our business manager, she'll tell you we're air conditioning and heating the entire outside.
Yeah.
Because the installation, and it's so old, right? Like we're just blowing air
Yeah.
out, right? So it's just, parking is a massive issue. We are cutting into hardscape playgrounds. We've lost hardscape playgrounds, which is think of like Foursquare and hopscotch and tetherball, things like that. We have lost those spaces at some of the current primary schools now because we have to cut into it for parking or portable use. So we are over capacity as it stands with nobody else coming here.
The real conundrum, I think, and certainly for me, who I wholeheartedly support this, I think the schools demonstrated, documented the need. I think they've done the homework to support the solution being offered. It's just the sticker shock, even
Yeah.
being a supporter, hearing numbers in that area is just, it's staggering, absolutely.
It's not anything we've ever done before.
And I've scrutinized the business case and, there's demonstrable significant savings over a 30-year runtime. But at the end of the day, the person that's casting the vote is worried about the taxes tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so it's that upfront expense that I think is the thing to really speak to. And on that front, we do have a finance subcommittee that's working on doing some debt modeling to really demonstrate how can we handle this debt going forward. It's a big chunk up front. And part of that answer is we need some level of sustained growth in our tax base. And so it's a complicated set of factors.
Yeah.
And so we need some level of growth to be able to support all of these things that we need.
It's definitely finding that sweet spot, right?
So we need more businesses.
Yeah,
Bring it back to us. Like.
working on that.
Yeah.
It's almost 8:40. Are there any other
I just
questions?
know how hard you're all working on this. Thank you. I know
Yes.
it's an enormous lift, an enormous effort. And my daughter's in first grade at 8 Corners, and she said her biggest dream for second grade is to be inside the building. So the kids notice, and it's great to see. And you take a lot of abuse for the work you're putting in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, should we take a minute? I feel bad. Everybody didn't introduce themselves. So could we just go around the table and introduce ourselves for Shannon and
Travis Kennedy.
John Krasnick, thank you.
Jason Perkins.
Kevin Freeman.
Well,
Jim Hartman from High Tree Seafood.
Alan Paul.
Andrea Collard.
Karen Martin on staff and Rick?
Rick Shanae.
Thank you for that.
So we appreciate you coming out to talk with us.
Yes, absolutely. And I will send you the flyer about the community forum and like I said, we have a document we put together that has all links to everything you could ever. You can
Excellent.
read and watch until your heart's.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure to get that out on
Thank
our
you.
distribution
Okay.
list.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us. We're happy to come anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean.
Do you guys have a-
Bagels.
Come back for an update or something.
Yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you guys, do you have a specific Facebook page or Insta page
Yes.
where people could share some of the information?
Yes, we do. We have
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram. I will make sure, I think they're included, but I will double check that they're in the document. for
Okay,
sure.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you
All right,
again.
thank
Oh,
you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
And thanks for
you.
bagels.
Absolutely. Sorry, Rick.
Just say goodbye.
Yeah,
I know you don't get the bagels when
yeah,
you.
there you go.
So I think just to clarify, I think that ask was just to, at this point. Send out the date
Correct.
after that, why,
Yeah,
okay,
just publicize. it.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Right,
think whether or not, I think we should probably, at the next meeting or something, we maybe can discuss. The issue, you know,
I think as I predicted that August meeting is likely to be a very pivotal one.
Yeah.
And I don't want to suggest that this board needs to or should have a formal position on the matter, but there'll be an opportunity for offering that support should we push to it.
do we have a July meeting?
Well, I was going to suggest that we do, for two reasons. One, I know that the Gorham Economic Development Corporation really would like to come and meet with us and just talk about, how they run their board, and they want to learn from this board as well. So they would really like to come. They wanted to come this time, but I thought we would not have enough time to do this presentation as well as the other things. So if everyone is okay with a July meeting, I would say we could do both. Look at whatever discussion we want to have on the schools, plus follow up or chatting
if
with the
the-
forum.
If the.
And
My
they'll come
only,
to
my,
us.
well, my only comment would be. If the meeting is gonna be in August, I think we'd have to have the discussion. in the
Yes.
July meeting,
Sure.
not discuss what we want. to
Right,
discuss.
right, I
So
agree.
if we were gonna do that, do we wanna do that with the forum
I think
folks
they could
here,
come,
or do we?
we
I
can
mean,
have
it's
them,
just it's up to everybody. I just
Yeah.
wanted to,
I should say it's entirely possible, I don't use this, but we still haven't agreed on a purchase price
Right.
for the land, and so. By your July, we'll know whether or not there's a land deal. If there's not a land deal, the school can go November. So
Yeah.
it's not
Right.
an
oh,
issue.
okay,
Right.
okay.
So I might say that kind of tentatively schedule that.
Yeah.
But stay tuned.
and I think we could ask the Gorham folks to come at like 9.
Oh, yeah, and I just,
Yeah.
just, it's just a.
But that's a good point. We should ask them to come later in the meeting so we can get some of our business done.
Is it safe to assume that the land deal is subject to the approval of the referendum?
Well, that's what we're working very hard is to finalize all the costs. They're working on kind of the building. It wasn't to prep the site and to build the building.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ancillary costs, land purchase, because of where that site is. There's a fair amount of off-site improvements that need just to get utilities and roads.
Yeah.
For a fairly unique use. So those costs are being worked on as we speak, and those will all come together as part of the same discussion and be included in a single question.
And so, Tom, the 137 million is the projected cost of the new school as well as any renovations or retrofitting of the
Yes,
two
but does not
schools.
include land sale,
Right.
a land purchase, nor offsets. My guess is it's probably in the 150 million.
All total.
Yeah.
Karen, what date would you think for the July meeting?
Well, our normal meeting time is the third week of the month.
That's the
We have it in right now.
Yeah.
Calendars for
Yep.
annual meeting planning.
Yeah, so I would say stick to that.
Is that the 20th?
Yes, I think that
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Okay,
I mean, it's true, we do reserve that for the annual meeting planning, so
well, we can always.
yeah, we don't have to call it a regular meeting, we can call it a subcommittee.
Okay, any other comments on the school before we move on? That was great to have
Yeah.
them come. Yeah,
Right,
I think that's gonna be,
That's good.
I think the cost savings are pretty obvious. And the schools is obviously a huge draw to Scarborough. So I think it's something we should definitely discuss accordingly.
And I thought, Kevin, your point about Dana being involved, we forget he is the facilities manager for a global corporation.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Dave Martin.
Yeah.
right? Dave,
Yeah.
I don't think he's on it any longer, but Dave was part of those initial efforts.
Yeah.
And he's a structural engineer, and Kylie Mason. He's,
True.
now the president of Sebago.
Yep.
Technics was involved in the early planning, and there's, and something, and there's another fellow, and I don't know, he's with Thornton Tomasetti, and is like one of their VPs of sustainability. I mean, that's really a all-star team that has been put together.
Approvals. There's the last meeting summary and the financial report. I guess I'll say, are there any questions or comments on the meeting summary? I have a motion to approve the last meeting summary.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any
Including
opposed?
Rick is yes.
Double-handed.
No, none opposed, okay.
Double vote.
And then, any questions or comments on the financial report?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will warn everyone, not warn everybody, I'll update. So June, we tend to wait till June just to make sure we haven't run into any extraordinary expenses. So in June, we're going to order a new computer. So you'll see some big numbers, but we are certainly within budget on that and have been planning for that. But didn't want anybody to be alarmed when they see some big numbers in
That's what
June.
she's using that today.
A lot of staff have that laptop, so.
Yeah, this laptop got us in trouble the other night. It wouldn't connect to the other system. And Jen, the IT director, came over. Who bought you that? I said, you guys did.
Yeah. 1990.
No, it's actually not that. It's about 5 years old, which I guess is old
How
for,
quickly they get
yes.
Oh,
out of
absolutely.
date now.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
insane. Okay, well, thank you. And Karen, do you want to move on to the follow-up on our measuring
Sure.
our success?
So, I think in your packet, I'd asked everybody to think of what are the top 3 measures that are 3 indicators that you guys really thought were important from that list that we did. Not that we wouldn't do as many as we could, but I wanted to get a sense of what are the indicators that were most important to you. And if I did it right, I should have a whiteboard here. Let's find out. And so I guess I would say, collaborating, presenting, okay. Here we are. So here are all the indicators that we've talked about. Some are easy, like, if you're talking about, that's why I asked them about the safe schools or good, good schools, I think we can get some great indicators there. Sidewalks, easy, like we can measure how many sidewalks we have and we can measure how many sidewalks we have next year. But anyway, we wanted to get a sense from everyone what your priorities were. And so if we wouldn't mind going around the table and give me your top 3, and then we could just see where we are on that. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Excellent.
This was tough. It was, I could easily pick 10. But I did open spaces for families.
I'm just going to put 1 after that. Okay.
Good and safe schools
Okay.
and cultural options.
Cultural options. Oh, here we are. Okay, who's next? I'm putting the ones out there so I can tally them up as we go.
So I also had open spaces for families.
Okay,
Good and safe
Oops.
schools, and I think collision spaces.
okay.
How do you define collision space?
Places where people go for various reasons, not necessarily to meet up, but run into each other. In a
Chance encounter.
church event, it's like a town square.
Typically have a chance encounter with you in your parking lot. I guess it's
So we're gonna map that one.
I agree,
Tim's parking
open
lot.
spaces for families and the good and safe schools. You know, similarly, any place that you can go in town, restaurants or cultural options where you have more opportunity to get out of your business, get out of your house, see your neighbors, get a chance to commiserate.
So I'm sorry, Jim, we have good and safe schools, open spaces,
Mhm.
and you got
Well,
one
there-
more.
it's, I guess, cultural options, but,
Okay.
But it's. Yeah. I
All
think
right.
we have some great restaurants, here in town. I'm very excited about the new Mexican restaurant, next to our store.
Mhm.
That seems to be doing very well. Food service there is fantastic and. Just more things to do. It seems like, it definitely seems like people who are visiting this area. Are really looking for more restaurants, more places to go while they're here, so. It's the big need. They keep trying to make our store into a restaurant. Keep fighting.
Jason?
It's, yeah, similar to a lot of the open spaces. I think another important one is diversity of jobs. Which obviously will help attracting more people here, but also kind of, you know, we're going through right now with our 14-year-old daughter, like trying to find her appropriate job. So diversity at all levels, all ages would be important on that end. And obviously the good and safe schools would be another one that's up there.
Okay, wait, so I think I only got Tim. Good and safe schools, diversity of jobs.
And the open space, the family,
Okay.
it's more like the social aspect.
Sure. All right,
So open spaces. The good and safe schools. And the diversity of jobs.
okay. Alan?
Yeah, the first two, the open spaces and the schools. But I'm gonna take a little break here and talk, well, not talk about, but suggest the sustainability initiatives.
Mhm.
I think people are becoming more and more concerned and aware of what's going on change wise. I mean, just look at our weathers across the country now. If you don't think global warming is having an effect.
Okay. Well, it's not letting me go down, so.
By the way, the collision spaces,
Yeah,
I see the open space item
As those.
hitting that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, a lot of these seem like they could be sort of.
collapsed and, okay. All right, so, and I know that, you know, we have the standard measures of economic progress that we're absolutely going to include.
Right.
So these are
Mhm.
the ones that are, you know, a little bit different and, you know, getting a good sense of where these belong. So it does seem like there's, not doesn't,
Did you
there
get that?
is,
Did you get mine?
I didn't get mine.
oh, Kevin, I'm sorry,
And Rex.
And Rick,
and Rick. Okay,
Mike.
Kevin.
I have 9.
who's got mine?
And but I made a top 3 and then I have others that I see equally important and most of those have been mentioned. But I am the traditional transportation, safety and housing. And that might be because all of a sudden we had 2 cops on our street because we had a vandalism to a home at the end of our street over Memorial Day weekend they seem to think it might be targeted, but we got into a conversation with the 2 police cars about what's going on in the Payne Road area and 8 Corners and how they're getting closer to where we are, about 5 miles up the road. And, so the concern of locking cars and,
What street?
well, the 8 Corners area.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And we're out off of Holmes and Broad Turn, but we're locked, the advice was make sure you lock your cars and stuff like that. So we seem like we're removed from it, but we're not necessarily removed from it. And housing plays a role in all of that.
Sure.
Did you
Right.
have someone come into our neighborhood yesterday, knocking on doors?
Not that I know of. I don't know.
Or someone that came, my son was home and he said that he was with the electric company and was there to pick up payment. And my son had
Actually, no, I
no,
was home yesterday.
my son had no idea what he was talking about. He had just woken up from a nap.
Yeah.
And but then the guy didn't leave a card, didn't leave an invoice, didn't leave a receipt or anything, and just walked away. He was wearing a safety vest, but that's very
That's
sus
bizarre.
Yeah.
to me. So I was gonna see if you had that same, but safety is interesting because I think
We have the rain.
we take it for granted
Shows it up.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I make a quick comment about safety? Most of you have a key fob, right? Never use it to lock your vehicle. Especially in a public space. They can capture the signal coming from your fob to your car. And as soon as you leave, they can break in seamlessly.
I had no
Never
idea.
use your fob to lock your car.
So glad I showed up this morning.
I know.
Yeah.
See, it's.
No, use the button when you park.
Yeah.
There's always a
Oh, the button on the door.
Use
So
the
that's
button on
okay.
the door.
That's what I use. I never check mine out.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, Rick?
Same.
I never thought of that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I guess I looked at this a little differently. I had understood the process at the last meeting was to identify things that give us happiness or add to happiness in living in Scarborough. So I actually, the open spaces, the first bullet item was one, which I think a lot of us have referred to. Safety is the second, and I guess I say I feel like Scarborough, generally speaking, is a safe community.
I would say so.
And that brings me happiness. And the third, which I don't think anybody else has mentioned, is the second bullet on the second page, make people aware of many good things that happen in Scarborough. I really focused on the second sentence. The town is thoughtful of its, I think it should have said decisions and consequences. I mean, I generally think the town council and administration have the best interests of the citizens of Scarborough in mind, and they, for the most part, pursue decisions and options consistent with that focus. So those were my three. I also would give honorable mention to knowing your neighbors, at least where I live, and notwithstanding Alan's comments, I think at the last meeting that he didn't feel he knew as many neighbors in our neighborhood as he used to. I feel quite strongly that we have great relationship with our neighbors, and that I think that may be townwide as well. So that adds to the happiness. But the top three were open spaces, safety, and the thoughtfulness of town government and town staff.
Okay.
Karen, just an observation. I know I was here when Travis brought this up, and it's an interesting exercise of happiness. What I see is the list generated and kind of what you're focusing on. I'm not sure is speaking to happiness.
Yeah, I think
It's more satisfaction, but more what are the elements of a
Of a good
a
community.
good community
Mhm.
kind
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah.
so, which I think is hugely important in its own right. But
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's reflective of happiness. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. I think the way that I answered some of these, I mean, what makes me most happy? I love getting out on the Eastern Trail, and I also love driving down Pine Point Road and coming up over that hump. And seeing
Smelling
the
cannabis.
ocean, seeing the ocean.
Smelling cannabis.
Maybe that's a little in there. But that's why he's happy. But I think when you get that view coming down over the new bridge and you see, you know, like, holy smokes, you're only like, you're 10 minutes away, you know, from where I am. And I, you know, it's that kind of thing. My wife would say the beach. I mean, Michelle would say the beach, Pine Point Beach, any day of the week is where her happiness comes from.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about how to put this in words, but I think it just distills down to people being able to recognize that they have something special.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of that is figuring out how to show them the commitment that our town and our community is making to create these special things for them. So make the beaches and trails really stand out as being nice. When you go there, you say, this is my tax dollars we're going toward. They're creating this nice town for me. And we see it in our schools, obviously. Tom, I've said this to you 20 times, but I can't speak enough about the Clover program in preschool. And they had their graduation yesterday, and every parent I talked to said, how cool is it the town created this? Because it's like the best preschool in town. So I think anytime we give people an opportunity to see that they have something unique here and maybe better than where they came from or better than what their friends and neighbors in other towns talk about. I think that's how we up their happiness quotient, right? Like, look what we have here. Other people don't get this. So much of it is just figuring out how to show them like all these things you want, all these things you like, they're here, and we focus on making them good for you.
So that adds like a second element to this, because it's our third one, identifying some characteristics that we're interested in, two, measuring it, but three, talking about the town's investment. And that's really another important piece that you don't see as much when you're looking at indicator reports and things like that. It's not only, you know, because some things happen organically, some things get better, some things get worse, but what is the town, how is the town investing in some of these programs? And Tom, does that make sense to you to talk about investments? Because I know that was a big discussion that John had at the
I think
during the
it's
budget.
important to hear what people think is important, and that helps inform where investment should go. So the thing that resonates to me, and it's come up and it's actually stated right here, is we've got so much positive around this community. Yet I find, and maybe it's just easier to focus on the few things that people perceive as negative, and it just kind of drowns out all of that. And it's a source of great frustration.
You know, kind of the same thing. I mean, for those of us who were at the all committees meeting last Thursday, and you see the quality of the people that are there and the people that are out there volunteering for the community. It's really amazing. We're very, very fortunate that we've got the people that we have in town who care enough to take their personal time to do this stuff. And that's big to me. I think was a great collection of people.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the next question I might have is in terms of, you know, staff, what we want to concentrate on, you know, is finding ways to measure some of these things. And so if we were looking, you know, I think there's enough ratings and things like that we can talk about for schools. So the open spaces for families and, you know, talk about beaches, parks, and trails, since that's clearly had the most of you around the table. I think everybody said that. What are some ways that we can show the community how much investment there is and how many amenities they have in these areas?
Well, is this mission creep a little bit? Because I mean, as much as I think getting to the root of this has to do with us as a town marketing to itself, about how great things are, I do think we need to stay in our lane about how steering economic development toward supporting these amenities is our goal, right?
Okay. You tell me. This is
That was just me saying stop.
Yeah.
I have no solution.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's, this is embarrassing, but I lived on Beech Ridge Road at the intersection of Beech Ridge and Holmes for 6 years before I knew that Springbrook Park was even there. So it might be our way of engaging like we've done with, like Art's done with the concerts of getting out around the town to all of the public spaces we have and hosting things. I was even thinking about this when the school group was here, engaging those public properties in the neighborhoods with the curriculum more. If all the kids are going to a place that everybody knows about, and there's a thing going on there once a month or something. How do we bring the business community to show themselves in all of the public spaces in Scarborough? So when people go there, they're like, oh yeah, this is here and it's free and I can use it whenever I want. But they're there to engage with our economic community at the same time.
Well, maybe to Tom's point, did you know, address that, today's world is sort of turbulent, sometimes politically divisive. But let's highlight the positive things that we have here. And maybe it's a 3 or a 5-part message. But first, look at the parks and the trails that we have, and let's highlight all of them. Here's a map to each one. I had a newsletter or something that went out. Maybe it's an advertisement on local TV, some
Is that something? we can
commercial
do for the
before a
newsletter?
town meeting or something.
I guess just to follow up on, we know what parks and public spaces we have.
Right.
And I'm sorry if I'm but I guess I guess I just. Are we saying, how do we communicate that? Or, I guess to Travis's point, this exercise was, I think, how does economic development lead to these things?
And contribute,
Right,
like,
what
how's
are,
our role
yeah.
succeeding and making.
these are ways to measure healthy economic development other than jobs, I think is what we initially
Right.
talked about. So these are ways to measure that. So one, what are we measuring? Are we measuring against other towns? Are we measuring,
Right.
but then also what? How does that, what is our role in doing more of these things? I think what we do with this, I guess, what are we doing with this list now? I think is.
Well, I think this is potentially providing us opportunities to look for businesses that support this vision that this culture that we have as an organization and as a town, so as a community. So what makes good community makes for a draw for good businesses that want to be in a community that provides this kind of a culture. So I think it helps to define it in a way, so then we can, as businesses come to us or as we market to businesses, right? Then that allows us to say, is it, more recreational businesses that come, and I don't mean like recreational marijuana, but like recreational, biking, paddleboarding, those kinds of things. So I think it helps to say if one of our number one things is our open spaces, what kinds of businesses can support that and then thrive in an environment that has a community that wants that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
When we had our offsite planning meeting, we came up with some priorities of what we should focus on.
Right.
And one of them was attracting certain types of industries and,
Right.
and so if those were our priorities and these are our measurements.
Right. You match
Then
them.
how do you?
Right.
How do you match
How
that?
do
And
we
then how do you-
match, how do we match our priorities with these measurements, I think?
And it becomes a more targeted approach for I think for Karen to be looking at industries and businesses that is not such a hard sell, right? It becomes almost an easier sell.
I think it goes beyond the type of the business itself that would market that. I think it comes down to the leaders of an organization. How do they think? What do they feel like?
Mhm.
Is that something they promote within their staffs? And if it is, then you can really kind of target it and say, and we can provide this, and this for your employees. And it's not necessarily just, oh, yeah, your business sells surfboards, yay.
Right.
Yeah,
It's the economic gardening
Yeah.
principle
Yeah.
that you're creating a space. You're not necessarily spending your time going out and recruiting someone. You're creating a space that is attractive to the types of businesses that you
I
want.
think it's, I appreciate Travis' point about, being mindful of scope creep and staying in lane, but I think it's fair to say that, most businesses, it's not about one thing, it's
Right.
about if we're taking care of our residents and we have a strong, healthy community, that people are happy and want to be here, I think it's not too much to think that translates to the business community as well.
Yeah.
So being mindful of these things, it's not directly in your wheelhouse and you can't move the needle on many of these things, but being mindful of a strong community, I think, one of the benefits is that your business community grows with that.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I just,
So it's
Um,
highlighting the indirect benefits
Yep.
of economic development.
And,
Yeah.
and I think what Travis said is
Because you
true
have
that,
good schools, because you have
Yeah.
good park, because you have a nice place. Pine Point just fixed stuff around.
Yeah.
And there's seats, the new decking, the old was fine, but the new was really in good shape.
and I think part of the issue is that we don't have to do all the measurement. We can go out to the different departments and say, how are you tracking or if we're looking at open space, we just did a new plan, we're looking at the community center. So we can go to Todd and say, what's your expertise tell you in terms of how you're monitoring what's going on in the community. So it doesn't necessarily have to be us. I think what we can provide is pulling everything into one place that does become that premier set of characteristics about Scarborough. But we don't have to be the one who actually, we just have to, grab it from the other departments. But I think that's partly, my sense of being staff, and Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong-headed, but I think we're all working so hard to do so many different things, but the collectiveness of that, the holistic, all the different investments sometimes gets missed about what that does for the community as a whole. We're thinking in our silos still, and it's very difficult not to.
Yeah, I mean, businesses, will often make decisions based on necessity and kind of the bottom line. But if they have a choice, being mindful of zip code matters and where they're locating matters, I think, in
is
some
the
cases.
new survey done? Has that been completed?
They're
Paul?
starting to formulate that.
So, I mean, should we have a question that says, what makes you happy?
We try to steer away from open-ended questions.
Okay,
Mhm. And I think where we can come in too is I think we've got the community survey, but I think SEDCO needs to concentrate on surveying our
Businesses,
employers
Yeah,
and finding out what makes them happy, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
And so that's something I think we
But
need to
Alan, to your
focus on.
point, we've got some other tools, I forget what it's called, but more kind of pulse survey.
Mhm.
That we can do on a lower level. It's not statistically significant, but I think there's other ways to kind of get at a little deeper on certain issues.
yeah. Just
I mean, this has been helpful to me. Travis, your suggestion gave me an idea. We've got a e-newsletter that has subscription base of over 3,500 and growing, which is really remarkable. And a lot of it has to do with, I think, the fact that we've got good, consistent content. It doesn't waste your time. You can move through it or dig deep, whatever you want. But I envision doing maybe an ongoing series that would be, what we call it, but highlighting a park or public space. So
Yeah.
it would be, a narrative description of what's there and what amenities, but also a 90-second video with Todd or someone kind of walking them through and showing them the space. Just to kind of introduce, did you know?
Yeah.
Include the land trust.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It could take us 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And that's
I mean,
what
I think a big part of it is almost finding ways to Trojan horse people into enjoying their own town, because, a lot of people know that we have a lot of this open space, but they don't ever go to it, so they don't really care, so how can we find ways to bring people there? And then you always get this reminder when you go to Memorial Park for the concert, that we have this big, beautiful park in the middle of town. And so in summer, we go there more often because my kids went on Thursday and had fun. And so I'm trying to think of ways to connect the town closer with its public resources as a means to bring people in and see it and enjoy it and come back on their own again. I promote it as much as possible, but I think as along with promoting it, saying, and also, we're doing this really cool summer bazaar this year, and local businesses will be selling Jason Moran's Shops tent. And, it's gonna be, an opportunity to come out and experience these things that your taxes pay for, they're free. And I think just getting people there from time to time just reminds them how great it is.
right. And I will say, from an economic development perspective, land in Scarborough is land for development is decreasing. We don't have that many spaces left, and that's okay. It's also potentially going to be more expensive to develop because we're going to have impact fees, or we already have some impact fees, and we may be right sizing those in the near future. So Scarborough is not a cheap place to develop, nor should we be. I'm not complaining about that, but I do think we have to back that up and say, you know what? Yes, you may pay a little bit more to develop in Scarborough, but here are the ancillary benefits from that. And I think we need to be clear about what that means. And, we're more expensive for a reason. And not that that's a tagline that we want to use, but I think it's something that we need to be able to defend. Yeah, we don't want it to be Scarborough, more expensive than you think.
Sticker.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 9:16, so I want to move on to the last couple items.
Yes. So, Travis, after the last meeting, was really thoughtful and put together some really fresh ideas for the annual meeting. And I think at the last meeting, we really decided, hey, we're going to really focus inward, focus on whoever our award winners are, focus on Tom doing some work. I saw Tom's eyes just go big. Yeah, he's getting.
I'm getting tapped for everything.
You are, I know.
Introducing a new staff.
Oh, that's you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Pleased to do that.
Yes. And Travis, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're suggesting we sort of just break things up, even if we have, a presentation that might be normally 20 minutes, maybe we do 10 on one piece of it, do an award winner, and do another 10, just so it's a little more lively. And so I guess I just want to say, what are people's ideas? Some of this, I think the live performance music was the only one that I kind of had some thought about, only because I'm not sure how to, we can talk to the schools, but as Magda said yesterday, she goes, kids really want people to focus on them.
Yeah.
And they want to,
Background.
even if they're bad, they want applause.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not in any way suggesting that our student musicians would not be a wonderful quality, but I just want to make sure that one just seemed, that was a lot of my wheelhouse for
It
organizing.
came up in the room and I thought
Yep.
maybe it could add a fun
Yep.
layer to it, but you're right, it has to be somebody who's there for background.
Yeah. But what are people's thoughts on sort of shaking up our
If I could just, because I voiced it to Karen yesterday, I just connected with her during the day after I had looked at the agenda and everything. And to me, this kind of harkens back to when we did our thing at Highland Farms.
Yeah.
That at the greenhouse at Highland Farms, it was not the Black Point Inn. The program was not the Black Point Inn. Yeah, Dan Bacon spoke, but it really was more of a celebration.
Mhm.
In that case of actually seeing people. Yeah.
Right,
But I think that this, and it was very well received that year at Highland Farm.
I think it was
And,
too.
So I thought just the overall of it, that was my feeling is, wow, yeah, this would kind of shake it up a little bit and I like it.
Are we back at Highland Farm?
No, we're Black Point Inn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be done there.
Yes.
Let me get it. Like, what-
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things we talked about is maybe having sort of two stages, if you will. So if we're trying to break things up, we might have one piece of the program on the side over here, and then the next one's ready to go in the front, and sort of back and forth, just to keep the shuffling down to a minimum. And then we do, we can have another microphone type of thing on the side. So I guess I would say if the thing that I was trying to figure out is, does that change the seating? Do we not have big round tables? How do we organize the attendees, if you will? Does anybody have any good ideas? Because Black Point Inn does not have, they've got about 4 high top tables.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I think the seating doesn't have to change.
Okay.
It's a dinner party, it's just more of a party and less of
Okay,
a presentation.
okay,
I think the way this is, you're basically sitting people down to do awards, then you're eating, and then you're finishing with awards, right? Like that's sort of the,
It looks like awards are kind of sprinkled throughout.
exactly.
Purposes.
Yeah, it's like an award show.
I think it's great. I mean, I think it's new, it's a little different. I think it still accomplishes what we want to do. My only comment is in terms of, when we're trying to get everybody to sit down to start, that's a bit of a process.
Yeah,
And then we kind of, that finally things quiet down and we start the program. If we're gonna kind of keep kind of stopping and going in different ways, I think we kind of just need to keep that in mind, that if we stop and people start talking again, or people get up from their tables and start talking again or something, that it can be difficult to kind of get everybody to
right.
quiet and focus again.
Yeah, all those transitions will translate to probably 10 minutes of kind of, I say dead time.
Yeah,
kind of
I just mean from a
transition.
time perspective, just, you don't want to just keep letting it
Yeah, it's pretty tight. I think it still has to be tight. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's people coming and going instead of one person for 20 minutes. one
Right,
person for
right.
20 minutes.
So
And I
that
think that's why-
speaker Kind of on deck. So, you know,
exactly.
come
So-
back and room to the-
It'd have to be a program.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
still
why
program.
2 separate stages, if you will, might make sense, because you've got one, one going here. As soon as they're done, this other spot is ready. And so it can sort of go back and forth.
But what it makes, if you're gonna do that,
Yeah.
you don't want people constantly shuffling chairs.
Mm.
So would it make more sense to have 2 stages in the front,
Oh.
one on this side, one
Yeah.
on this side?
You know, both in the same view. I mean, they're.
There you go.
Correct.
20 feet apart, something. like
Yeah, that makes much more sense.
So just the conversation going around right now brings to mind like 4 things. One, when the Chamber of Commerce all of a sudden moved over to Brick South, and they did that event where it was like cocktail party, and then they had a section where they did all the awards. And I think you and I sat
Yep.
together that year. And it was like cocktail party, and then, all right, everyone, go in and take a seat. We're gonna do the awards now. That was at Brick South. Today, right, the Imagine Portland event is being held at Aura, which is a facility that is like, you can do it because that facility is all about flexibility of have your cocktail hour, and then boom, we've got a big stage and the focus goes to the stage and you can sit if you want it.
Mhm.
I think what we will find, the key is can the Black Point Inn be flexible? Because flexibility is not something that I would use to describe the Black Point Inn. And that may, I'm not saying it wouldn't work for this year, but what that may signal is that we need different venue.
Want to keep evolving.
Well, if we
Well, and
keep
I think that's
evolving,
why the
and the way
highway
we evolve
design
from
was-
that, because that space doesn't cry out
Right.
flexibility.
Right,
But
yeah,
if you rotated everything kind of like 90 degrees.
yes, so
You
everybody's
still have the
behind the
room in the
windows.
back and stuff for the food. So if you rotate everything to the right 90
Yeah.
degrees,
Right.
all right, you've got kind of like that long wall.
It's a great suggestion.
Although the wait staff, that's where they. come
That's
and go
where
for
they
certain
come and go.
schools.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking the
Other way.
other way.
Other way,
You know, you've got the
facing-
windows out,
Yeah.
so we would be in front of the windows, normally where they set up,
instead of in
the
front of the
hors d'oeuvres.
fireplace.
yes.
But they've
Oh,
got that
yeah.
back room over there too, where they usually line up all the food. So
Yeah.
you gotta
Yeah, but they,
just,
there's a little well, there's two, there's the L like right when you come in, they sometimes have it closed off, but there's an L where they sort of store tables and things like that. So they could set up food there, leaving the window space
Yep.
free for us. And then the drinks and everything are sort of another little leg that sticks out.
I have no doubt that they can
Yeah,
make it work. I think.
So-
So I'm hearing Kevin correctly, though, the Brick South
Yeah.
event that you were talking about, I think I was there as well. And are you saying that not enough people went to the award
No,
ceremony?
no, I'm not saying that.
Because I remember it being very loud
yeah,
during,
Very
It
loud.
was,
during the award
Because people
ceremony,
didn't
because
go
people
over.
still didn't
Yeah.
go over and stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah,
again, I think they could find a way to make, my only point is that the program. I mean, we still want people focused on the speakers, the presenters and everything like that. And so if it's gonna kind of just be broken out more. I just think the program needs to still,
be very tight.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
so-
expect people to sit down and behave when the show starts and stay
Right.
seated
right?
till the end. It's
Right.
not like a come and go. as you
We're
please.
gonna,
well, it's still, in respect to what you're saying. It's still a limited crowd. I mean, there can only be so many people
Right.
at the Black Point Inn. So
that's
that
correct.
lends itself to being able to handle it.
Okay,
so
I mean,
get
I-
Kevin in.
I'm not sure that this really changes. I think what changes is one less long speaker and
Yep.
more
Right.
It's just the pace.
shorter,
Yeah.
Right,
shorter.
bounce
I
back.
think
Right.
it's just
and,
bouncing.
and doing the awards, or some awards earlier, so they're scattered throughout, I think that's
Yeah.
a great idea.
I just wonder the dinner piece, because again, you're gonna have people going up, or is it gonna be a plated?
We need to think about that,
Because if it's plated, that's gonna be a lot easier than waiting for people to
Yeah.
go through a line,
that's
just
the
one.
problem. getting
Or
people
do
to the
you
line.
do heavy hors d'oeuvres, like really substantial
Mhm.
hors d'oeuvres with a few of those high tops scattered, and
Yeah.
we could rent
Yeah,
some.
That's
from them
true.
If we wanted more high tops, and you could have food. On the high tops as well, so that people
Yeah.
are mingling, but still standing, and then having against the windows, having that presentation.
Yeah.
Versus a sit-down dinner kind of.
But
right,
if you rotate things. I'm trying to think where the podium will be. It won't be at the windows. It's going to be that transition point from the tables to that open kind of circulation area, right, to the windows.
well, no, I put
Yeah, all
at
the way
least
away.
one podium at the window.
Yeah,
And we've got a sound system too that we can, it's sort of like what you used the other night. So we can have two of them, so you've got two mics, but set up
Right.
a distance apart,
I
but
would recommend that a couple of people go,
Yes.
yeah.
go to the
Scope
facility,
it out.
meet with whoever is gonna be in charge there. Explain what you want, be in the room so you can look around and
Yeah.
determine what would actually be best,
okay,
instead of us trying to figure that out here.
okay.
And I would go
Oh,
at
yeah.
the time that we think that the event's gonna be at, so that we can see where the lighting is.
Oh, that is an excellent point.
It's October though. So
Yeah, but
lighting might be gone already.
yeah,
Okay.
what time does it get dark?
All right.
All right, so I will,
I'm happy to scope that out with you.
excellent.
Aaron.
I'll
Yeah, I
check
think
that
this
out.
is great, and thank you, Travis. I mean, I
Yeah,
Yeah,
think this is new. Look, I mean. It's always good to try new, and we get feedback and see what people think. I mean, again, I think some of our speakers have been great. don't think that's necessarily
Mhm.
why people come.
Right,
People
right.
come, it's a beautiful venue. They
Right,
want to get an
They wanna
update on the town,
celebrate.
they want to see people, they want to talk.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, sometimes you get the feeling people would stand there and talk all night
Yeah.
if they could.
they would.
So, I think this is, good.
Rick, can I check in with you? Because
I think all these ideas are great. I think that, restructuring a different approach is good. My sense is that people like to commingle at the beginning, and then when we finish talking, everybody leaves for the most part, except those of us who straggle over to the bar. But I think this is a good refreshing of the approach. I'm all
Yeah.
for it. And the
Okay.
suggestions that have been made.
All right, so I will, is there anybody else?
Jackie.
Yeah. Anybody else who wants to head over to the Black Point Inn at some point when I arrange that? We've already put our deposit down, so we're
I'll
there.
go over with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Can we do that by Zoom?
I can
Just
I'll
kidding.
FaceTime you, Alan.
Talk around with that then.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you, everyone. I just, really quickly before we adjourn, I just wanted to point out, add to what Alan said, that Alan, Rick, and I did go to the All Summit, meeting. And I really wanted to compliment Tom and Karen. It was,
Right.
Tom, I think you did a great job facilitating. Really, it was good. It was incredibly on time, and we covered a lot. And just to give a very quick summary, Tom spoke, John Anderson spoke. John Anderson went over some current priorities that the council has recently started to, and then the goal was to have every committee that was represented stand up and give a very, very quick 2-3 minute speech on what they're working on, and if possible, relate it to those priorities. I don't know how well I did, but
Did
it was
great.
great. I think there was I remember 18 of the
18 to 20.
20 committees there. And then everyone spoke. And then at the end, Karen did a very nice job of saying, okay, everybody's gone up and spoke. Can we think about ways that each committee could maybe work with each other or work with another? And it was interesting. The overwhelmingly, the number one committee that almost seemed like everybody stood up and said that they wanted to work with it, find a way to work with, was transportation. Which was, very interesting, how vast that, how many different ways that committee, relates to the town. But, it could have been, like I said, it could have been just about any committee could probably find a way to work with another committee there. I said transportation, but I also said, housing. So it was very well done, very informative. And again, to Alan's point, just a lot of really talented, committed people working on the committees in the town.
Just one thing to share, it's interesting, as opposed to collaboration, which I agree, that was the intent. The one thing that we've seen so far is actually posturing for confrontation, not collaboration. You might recall the Housing Alliance, Brian talked about kind of in his mind, kind of competing priorities with open space. And it was someone that had appeared at the last conservation meeting after the summit. And wanted to alert them to that you've got a threat in another committee that is working at cross purposes to you. So,
Oh, that's really interesting.
yeah.
There was a nice summary done by, I don't know if you wrote, I'm sure you
Yeah.
wrote it,
That just
but
said,
It's
If-
politically
if you-
motivated.
it's available. For
Yes.
anybody who might want to read it, reach out to Karen.
Right. Yes,
yeah,
and it
and
is,
Martha sent it out today.
good.
Yes,
this morning.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it is online. I mean, it is,
Yeah.
the
Recorded,
meeting was
right.
recorded.
Anything else?
I just want to mention our grand opening is next Thursday. Apparently my email didn't go out to all of you, so I'll make sure that gets out. But it's Thursday from 4 to 6 on the 22nd.
RSVP required.
Preferred, but not required.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, it's
Get us the
it's
room there.
really, John, you're too late.
He's got enough time that he can put his name on the
Yeah, he
waiting list.
could. Well, we're getting there. It's about 15 years.
Now. he'll
About
just
10
about
years.
be ready.
Gonna
What
get
it
more
is.
money in my 401k.
It's 4 to 6. It's 4 to 6.
4 to 6, yeah. So the invitation, we are now, I am going to be sending out another invitation to those that have already RSVP because we're no longer parking at Camp Catch or Catch Outdoors. All the parking is going to be on Piper Shore's site, so that makes it a lot easier
On the main campus.
On the new site.
on both campuses. So we'll have plenty of parking attendants to direct everybody. Yeah.
Right. And I do have a list with all the council members and everything. if
Yeah.
You need it. You should.
So you've received one,
Good.
yes.
Okay.
I think, I don't know where the disconnect happened, but so my apologies.
Could be in my mailbox somewhere.
It did go into a lot of people's jobs too.
Karen, I'll send out the info on
Yeah.
the school meeting next week as well.
Yes.
right? Okay.
I drove in.
Are we gonna start tossing around word ideas or is that next month or
Yeah, we need to.
categories?
I think you were all sent the previous years.
Cheers, winners.
So I would say, if you have suggestions,
Here's the
start emailing me.
categories.
Have a great legacy business.
Good. Tom, they should be on the list of all the previous winners and, I'll make
Okay,
sure
I'll
I'll
just-
resend that.
You could just bring that to the top of our.
Yeah,
our
I
mailbox.
hear you.
Who you got, Travis?
Small steps school advance.
Is that about-
It's more than 20 years.
is that
She's-
about debate?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's
okay.
teaching
She's awesome.
3-year-olds now. She taught their mom when they were
Oh, God.
Yeah,
thousands of kids have
Yeah.
gone through that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a performance.
oh my gosh, that would be so darn cute.
It's only just restarted. You could ask her, give her enough advance to get her older kids.
Get
Yeah.
some of the older. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I just thought of it when we were at my daughter's recital. I looked around and I thought, I know so many of these people and I know their kids and it's a great thing that has always been here. So.
All right, anything else before we adjourn? Right?
Our next meeting date is,
2020.
what is it? July
Oh,
20?
July. Yes, before I go on vacation.
All right.
All right,
Sorry, I couldn't
motion
join you personally.
So move.
in favor. All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Enjoy the long weekend, right?
Yes, it's a long weekend for us.
Yep. EK.
Okay, you're free to say whatever you like.
I'm so sorry. I missed it.